Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I am your host for today, Riley Fessler, joined as always by Minna Stein. How are you today, Minna?
I'm fabulous.
That is fabulous to hear. I don't know about you, but I didn't have a ton of big ticket stories today, to be perfectly honest. It's kind
Yeah,
of a slow news day, but we still got some.
yeah, coming off the debate a little slower
Yeah.
today than most days, but we have some debate updates. Taylor Swift recently made headlines by expressing her full support for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in the upcoming US presidential election. Her Instagram post, which garnered millions of reactions and shares, also criticized the Republican camp for spreading fake AI-generated images suggesting that Swift supports Donald Trump. In response, Elon Musk, a known ally of Trump, seemed to indirectly threaten Swift in a controversial post, suggesting he would, quote, give her a child. The post has also driven over 330,000 people to vote.org, not even 24 hours after she posted the link. So, good things and bad things coming from this update from our story on it yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, I was right.
You were right. I was wrong.
I knew Taylor Swift would have an outsized influence because her fans are diehards.
Shame
Um,
on me for comparing her endorsement to George Clooney's endorsement in my head. I'm
yeah, I
like, ugh,
mean
celebrity endorsements don't
the
mean anything. I
the
was wrong.
Clooney heads are not nearly as rabid as the Swifties. Yeah, I mean Swifties are just a different breed in terms of engagement and faithfulness to Taylor Swift. So I'm not really surprised. I mean, 330,000 in less than 24 hours is pretty
Yeah.
insane. It's
But her
even more than I.
supporters are young. So we'll see if they actually show up. I mean, if 330 people, all of those people, young people, voted for Harris in the upcoming election, she would win.
Yeah,
So she
yeah. I
definitely has the power to sway the election, but will all of those young people
yeah,
actually show up to vote? I don't know.
it's a fair question. The youth vote historically not very reliable, so we'll see. We'll also kind of see what Taylor Swift herself does
Hmm.
between now and the election. If this is kind of sustained support for Kamala Harris, or if this was just kind of a one-time thing and maybe it'll die out and her fans will kind of move on to the next thing. It's hard to say.
I do
But
think it was planned because I saw
oh
like
yeah,
immediately after she did the endorsement, the Harris Walls campaign released in their merch store like Walls Harris friendship bracelets like from the Taylor Swift concerts, and I was like, that was very crafty, you guys. You were
yeah.
cooking up something behind the scenes
I mean, it was
while we all
released.
wondered if she was going to endorse you.
It was released too soon after the debate. It was like a really long and well thought out post. And then yeah, they released merch right after. So this was clearly like organized, which I mean, it's fine. Like it's how the game is played. But um, yeah, I mean, the campaign clearly pounced on this as soon as they possibly could.
And
Um,
what do we think about Elon Musk?
he's a creepy fucking dude. I mean, I don't know. Like Musk continues to be a freak.
Yikes.
Um,
Yikes.
yeah, his entire existence continues to be yikes. He sucks. He's a freak. There's not really much to say about it.
Yeah.
He has become even weirder as time goes on, and especially after buying Twitter. So it's not all that surprising, but he sucks. Like I don't have a whole lot to add. He's just a horrible guy.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add either. It's just like every gross, creepy thing surprises me still, I guess. I don't know why they
Yeah,
surprise me, but I'm just
he,
like, what?
he's like if all the dark corners of the internet like congealed and were given human
Yeah,
form.
really
And
not
this
good.
is the incel side of that internet coming out, and it's
Love.
very bizarre. Shifting a little bit on the anniversary of 9/11 yesterday, a poignant scene unfolded at Ground Zero with President Joe Biden, former President Donald Trump, and Vice President Kamala Harris present. The solemn commemoration was marked by a moment of political unity as Trump and Biden shook hands, facilitated by former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. During the events, relatives of the victims appealed to the candidates for greater accountability and justice, urging action on issues such as Saudi Arabia's alleged involvement in the attacks and dissatisfaction with past plea deals for 9/11 perpetrators. The day saw both presidential candidates visiting memorial sites and paying respects, while families and communities reflected on the impact of the attacks and the ongoing quest for answers and remembrance. Good to have a kind of rare moment of unity, which seems kind of impossible in the current political climate.
Mm-hmm.
I think 9/11 is one of the things that is kind of a ground that we have agreed to not use for political gain. I'm sure there's counter examples to that, but it's nice to see that some things are still sacred and are not being used as a political tool, especially from a campaign that seems like that nothing is sacred. So it's, any signs of unity, I think, is kind of a breath of fresh air in this climate. So it's sad that it
I mean, he was
has to
just at
take.
Arlington and his team was like fighting Arlington workers
Right.
to get in there. And
Exactly.
I don't know. So I don't know. I'm like, oh, yay. He shook hands one
Yeah,
time at one
exactly.
event.
I mean, the bar is so low with everything I said being said. I'm not impressed, but it is rare and surprising in a way. I also saw the video on Twitter that is making the rounds of Biden putting on a Trump hat at some event, which was kind of funny, kind of cute. I didn't actually remember the context of where it is, but it's a Trump supporter and they swap hats, and it's very, very cute,
That
very
is very
fun,
sweet.
very wholesome. I'm sure
Uh,
it will be used for something bad down the line. So enjoy it while you can.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, speaking of Republicans, following the recent presidential debate, Republicans are accusing the media of bias against Donald Trump. They argue that the moderators unfairly fact-checked Trump while letting Kamala Harris's claims go unchallenged, describing it as a 3-on-1 situation. Trump himself echoed these sentiments, claiming the debate was rigged against him, despite having previously criticized debates for lacking fact-checking. Critics from both sides have weighed in, with some praising the moderator's performance and others, particularly Republicans, feeling that the debate was skewed and that Trump's vision for the country was overshadowed by contentious topics. I have a lot of thoughts on this story. My first thought being Trump was in the spin room after the debate, which, like, that's the first sign that you lost, but whatever, saying, like, this was the best performance I've ever had. I performed amazingly. I definitely won this. The fake news media will say that I lost, but I definitely won. I never lie. This is the best performance at a debate I've ever had. So then why are you saying if you won, why is it rigged?
It's cope. He's coping hard because he belly flopped. And also the debaters or the moderators
Amazing.
were unfair because Trump lied 10 times the amount as Kamala Harris, and they didn't have to fact check her as much, if at
The
all.
moderators were also probably the best moderators that I have seen at a debate ever in my lifetime. And I will say that the first presidential debate that I watched was Obama McCain.
Yeah.
And I was in third grade. So I thought these moderators did such a great job challenging the candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they obviously fact checked Trump more, but the only things that they really fact checked were like outrageously egregious claims. Like,
Yeah.
it's legal in some states to assassinate a baby right after they're born.
Yeah.
So they just fact checked like the really big things. And I thought they asked equally hard questions
Yeah.
to
They
Harris
had.
as well. They asked her tough questions too. I don't think they gave softballs to anyone. I thought they were
No.
great.
Yeah. They gave some pretty tough questions to Kamala Harris. I was, for a debate that supposedly was very biased towards her. I mean, they should have given her
Yeah,
some more softballs.
they didn't give
Um,
any.
but it's, and they held their feet to the fire on a couple answers where she kind of dodged. So, I mean, it was pretty equal, all things considered. But when one of the candidates is lying egregiously, yeah, it's going to appear like the moderators are being biased, but maybe don't lie That's a good way to get moderators on your side. Don't spread bullshit on air
All I
about
can
eating
hope
cats and dogs.
all I can hope is that these are the same moderators at the Vance Walls debate.
Yeah, I
Wouldn't
mean
that be a beautiful thing?
that's gonna be a show to be sure.
I can't wait.
I would love it if it was the same moderators. I doubt it will be, but who knows? Shifting focus internationally, Sergei Karaganov, a prominent Russian foreign policy figure, has urged President Putin to adopt a more aggressive nuclear stance against countries supporting NATO's actions in Ukraine. In a recent interview, Karaganov suggested that Russia should clearly signal its readiness to use nuclear weapons in response to significant strikes or territorial seizures, arguing that the current doctrine is insufficiently deterrent. He criticized the U.S. claims of guaranteed nuclear protection for its allies as deceptive and warned that Russia must shift its nuclear posture to avoid potential disaster from prolonged conflict and economic strain. Although Karaganov's views are influential, they do not represent official Russian policy, but are closely monitored by Western analysts for insights into Russia's strategic thinking. I obviously don't have the necessary expertise to have a very informed opinion on this, but my initial reaction was kind of just, nuclear saber rattling is not necessarily new for Russia, especially in this conflict. It's been kind of the key deterrent that has kept kind of greater involvement from the West. So I shudder to think what a more aggressive nuclear stance would be, outside of actually using it. Russia has certainly threatened as much as they can that they're going to use it. So I don't know if Karaganov is advocating for something like a tactical nuclear strike, but I am very heartened that he is not actually an official policymaker, because that would be absolutely terrifying. And I frankly don't think it would actually benefit Russia. I think the thought that using nuclear weapons and deploying them would benefit Russia is pretty delusional. I think that leads down a road that nobody really wants to go down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, all citizens of Earth are happy that that guy is not a policymaker. In Israel, an Israeli official, Gal Hirsch, has proposed granting safe passage to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar if all remaining hostages held in Gaza are released. Hirsch emphasized that along with the hostages' return, Gaza would need to be demilitarized and de-radicalized. However, a diplomat briefed on ceasefire talks mentioned that Sinwar may prefer to stay in Gaza over relocating to other countries. Sinwar is accused by Israel of orchestrating the October 7th attack and remains hidden in Gaza's tunnels. So, it's kind of like a no update, although things are slowly happening, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty big concession. I'm not sure if the Netanyahu administration is going to go for that. I mean, giving up the
No.
architect seems like a pretty big ask. But if anything, it kind of shows, I think, that some officials are at their wits' end and are willing to make a more conciliatory deal. Whether this actually echoes the sentiments of the majority of policymakers or even influential ones, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's clear with the recent protests that public sentiment is shifting, and people are getting tired with the way that Netanyahu has been handling this conflict. Whether that's going to precipitate a big change or even change in government or a peace deal, it's hard to say at this point. We've kind of been teased with a peace deal and ceasefires on and off, so it's kind of hard to really feel certain that one is coming. But the pressure is certainly on. So I think we get closer as this goes on, obviously. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
we will.
Well, that is all we have for you today, but we will have more pods coming in your feed later today. We actually have both our foreign affairs pod and our domestic politics pod coming out today. So you will have a wealth of DSR to listen to. Of course, have the daily blast out, so be sure to check that out. And then we will be back tomorrow with another DSR Daily. But until then, bye-bye.